Okay, are we there? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the wonderful July Louisville Town Council. June. I'm looking at so many familiar faces in the audience, it takes me back to maybe a number of months. But it's the June Louisville Town Council meeting. It's good to see you all here tonight. I love it when we have a packed house, or at least half the side of a packed house. I guess you're on the bride's family and you guys are on the groom's family. So anyway, it's great that you all are here. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start our meeting, as is customary, with an invocation by our resident pastor, Tom Albert, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilman Jeff Zinger. And please stand if you are able to join us. Tom, would you do your remarks from that microphone? You can pick that microphone off there if you want to. That way our folks at home can hear your stellar comments.
Last time I was here, I tried to start my own TV ministry, or one of those times, and I see that you've got enough people in the back to keep me from doing that again. You all here. It is always a blessing to come to see our town council and democracy working at its very, very best, because we're all neighbors, and it is just absolutely wonderful. And I always thank you for every opportunity that you give me to come and bless these meetings, especially with all of those people in the back who do so much to serve us. And a special blessing on each and every one of you and all that you do for our community. Let us pray. Almighty God, we do give you thanks for every opportunity that you give us to serve you and to serve our community. We give you thanks for all of those who give of their time to serve on this council and who have served on this council and have meant so much to our community. Now, Lord, we ask that you be with us throughout this meeting. Help that all that we do and say is to glorify you and to help us to be the very, very best community we can be to serve all of the people who live here. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. As is also customary, we will have our call of attendance, beginning with Mr. Zinger.
Hi, I'm Jeff Singer. It's great to see all of you here tonight.
Good evening. I'm Ed Smith. Nice to have you.
Good evening. I'm Sandra Mock.
I'm Mike Horn.
Robert Green.
Good evening. Marcy Gallman.
And I'm Fred Franklin. It's a pleasure to serve as one of your council members.
Very good. And council members, from what I understand, we are streaming live on our Facebook page successfully with our new broadband service. So those of you watching at home, I hope there won't be a delay. We are also streaming live on TV6. So from the comfort of your living room and your couches, you can watch the proceedings. And we are also on the World Wide Web on LouisvilleNC.net for our fans around the world. Is that correct, Jeannie? Are we good on all of them? Outstanding. I think this is the first night that we may have everything working at the same time. Very good. Council members, you have an agenda in front of you. There haven't not been any changes since our briefing. We'll entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Smith makes the motion. Mr. Zinger makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. That's our agenda. Hank, will you walk us through our consent items, please? My Mayor Pro Tem is, as she is apt to do, says, Mike, you forgot to introduce staff. So I should probably do that this time. We have with us our town manager, Hank Perkins, our town attorney, Bo Half, Jeannie Taylor, who is our new communications specialist in the back. Good to see you, Jeannie. We'll have an introduction of you in just a minute. Our town planner, Josh Harold, our town clerk, Joyce Walker, and our town finance director, Pam Orell. Do we have anybody else? Could there possibly be anybody else here from town staff? No, we have everybody. Hank, let me pause here for a second and go ahead and introduce Jeannie to us.
Okay, I'd like to welcome Jeannie Taylor officially to our staff. Jeannie Taylor is joining us is our new communication specialist. She is a delight, and she comes to us with a lot of talent and a lot of experience, and we're excited to have her join the team.
Very good. Welcome, Jeannie. Okay, Hank, our consent items, please.
Okay, the consent agenda consists of 4 items. First is Resolution 2018039 for the acceptance and approval of monthly financials for April 2018. Next is the approval of council briefing and action minutes from May 3rd, 2018. The approval of council budget minutes from May 3rd, 2018. And lastly, the approval of council meeting minutes from May 10th, 2018.
Ladies and gentlemen, the consent agenda are items that ordinarily come and routinely come before the council for consideration. We take them all as a group. However, any council member can choose to pull any of those items off for discussion and consideration independently. Council members, what's your pleasure?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Ms. Mock makes the motion. Mr. Smith makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That is unanimous. Sheriff Schatzman, how good to see you.
Sir, yes, sir.
Please come up. I think you have a whole delegation of folks here. I'm not going to say a bevy of beauties, but you certainly have a number of outstanding gentlemen that you're going to want to turn over, I guess, to the chief deputy to introduce.
I will do that. But first, let me just say thank you to each of you for supporting us here in Louisville. Thank the board. Louisville is one of the jewels in Forsyth County. I would say it was the best, but all the other communities will be mad at me for doing it. I tried that once with Clemens and almost got hung by the Clemens town manager. But we are so proud to provide law enforcement for the communities that we do and the unincorporated areas of the county. We do that with a bevy of men and women who are committed and dedicated and the best that we can hire. We provide them with all of the accoutrements of training and equipment, and we put them out for your protection and your safety. And I think that we do a good job with that. Certainly, we work hard to do that. Brad, if you want to come up and talk about each one of these gentlemen, the ones coming and going. Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Sheriff. We have a great partnership with the Sheriff's Department and have for a long, long time. I believe if I look at some of the distinguished faces in the audience, they'll attest that we've all had great partnerships with the Sheriff's Department in our community policing.
But I don't think we've arrested anyone in the room.
Not yet.
Not as yet.
Look hard at a couple.
We need to talk.
Stanley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Thank you for allowing us to be here for a moment. We're sort of the bittersweet once again before you tonight. I know that's part of it, but as the sheriff said, we obviously try to find good people, especially to assign to the community policing programs. And as part of that, obviously, they are going to excel and move forward, and that's what's happened for a couple. So that's what we have. As you probably know, your current Corporal Justin Burcham will be promoted to sergeant here in about 2 weeks. And as a result, he will be moving on to another assignment about the middle of July. So he has been serving you for the past several months. And so anyway, I just wanted to come and, I guess, to formally tell you that he will be leaving as your assigned supervisor for the community policing program in Louisville, but also to say that I'll introduce in just a moment his replacement. So the other one is Mike Sutton. He's assigned to you. Mike will be moving on to criminal investigation as one of our investigator detectives. And so that will happen actually on Saturday. So he's getting ready to go from a uniform to a suit and tie in about 2 days. So that'll be a change for him in lots of ways. And the other one is Deputy Hammonds. As part of our continued, cross-training in different areas, and truly he is a field training officer, and we have that need in our patrol area to as we're bringing on new recruits, and so we need his experience and guidance there in that capacity. So he's going to go back to patrol to train some new hired employees that we have. So those would be the 3 that you're losing, but to follow that up, the first will be Corporal, come on up, guys. The first is Corporal P.J. Stringer. Come on around over here. Let them all see you. He'll be your new Louisville Community Policing Supervisor. He's been with the Sheriff's Office since 2006, and during his tenure, he's worked obviously in field services, patrol, and in community policing in Clemens. In 2010, he was assigned as one of our first DWI task force officers, and during that tenure, he made over 550 impaired driving arrests as part of the DWI task force in Forsyth County. He's also one of the few drug recognition experts, and he was certified in that in 2012. In 2016, he moved on to a different assignment off the DWI task force. After about 6 years, he was ready for a change, and he went to investigations and was assigned as the Clemens detective. And then most recently, he was promoted in October of last year to corporal and has been serving the community of Clemens since that time. So I know he was telling me coming here that they announced at the Clemens Council the other night that he would be leaving, and so he did tell me y'all had snacks out here. So anyway, but he is well versed in lots of capacities, both from an investigative standpoint, administratively, and from the field services standpoint. So we feel very comfortable and are proud to present him as your new supervisor of your community policing program here in Louisville.
Welcome aboard.
Now, do you prefer PJ or Preston? PJ, very good.
If you call me Preston, I'll think I'm in trouble.
Maybe that won't happen too often. Good to see you. Welcome.
The next is Deputy Brian Lange. As he's coming forward here. Deputy Lange has been with us for about 3.5 years. During his time, he served in obviously patrol, field services, and the court security program. He was born in Colorado and then raised in Baden, North Carolina, and graduated from North Stanley, so there's got to be some good somewhere. There's a Stanley in there. North Stanley High School in 2007. And has an associate's degree in criminal justice and is on just a few credits shy of his bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And so he will be one of your replacement officers serving Louisville. And the last one is Deputy Cody Harris. He's been with the Sheriff's Office for about 2 years, and where he has worked at this point just in our field services patrol section. He's also a member of our agency SWAT team, and he was born originally in Fayetteville and comes from a military family background. So we're proud of him and his accomplishments and look forward to his service in Louisville as well.
Very good. Well, folks, if you'll join me in congratulating the departing and welcoming the arriving. Thank you for all you do. This is a wonderful honor for us to be able to have community policing extended to our residents. It started off as an experiment with 2 deputies, and it's grown to 6 deputies. And I think the fruits and the benefits to our town over the years are obvious. The relationship is unique between our deputies and with our residents, because it's not one of intimidation, or it's not one of fear, or it's not one of concern. It's a friendly, understanding, supportive, and cooperative, collaborative relationship. And we welcome you guys here. We look forward to seeing you on the streets. And you guys that are leaving, we'll see you. Get out of here.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I understand, Bertram, you're staying through the 4th of July, though, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good. We want to be clear.
That was part of he was begging. We were going to make it effective July 1st, and he said, please let me stay.
Thank you. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate it. Sheriff, always good to see you. Thanks for being here with us. Okay. We have some recognitions that we'd like to make. As you know, Town of Louisville has a number of committees and boards that participate in a variety of activities for our community. One of them is our Student Leadership Committee. And this allows high school age students, Joyce, how old can they be when they join the
They just have to be in middle school.
Middle school, okay, so they can be in middle school, and of course, upon graduation, they move on to other endeavors. But we have several folks that we're recognizing tonight for their participation in our Student Leadership Committee. One is here with us. I believe, Spencer, you're the only one that's with us. Stand up there, buddy. Spencer Ballas, who you have seen before at our council meetings. He's been here a couple of times. I think one time, Spencer, didn't you sit right over here and do a presentation?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Okay, very good. Spencer has been with the Student Leadership Committee for 4 years. He's graduating from Reagan High School. I know his mom and dad are a bit chagrined that he chose Georgia Tech with out-of-state tuition as where he's going to be attending college. Spencer, congratulations. You come from a great family. You've got a terrific brother, mother, and father. Known them for a number of years, and you're a great credit to them and a great credit to our community. Good luck to you. Please feel free to stop in and say hello to us on occasion, okay? Great. The other two members of our Student Leadership Committee who are leaving us, Madeline Johnson, who has been a member of the Student Leadership Committee for 4 years. Is that correct also? 4 years. She is a graduate of West Forsyth High School. She is going to Emory University in Atlanta. She wants to pursue a career in medicine. And Emma McCool is leaving us. She is a graduate of Reagan High School. She was on the Student Leadership Committee for 4 years. And she is going to go to North Carolina State University and wants to go into some aspect of environmental sciences. So thank you for your participation in our committee. I hope the experience has been rewarding and meaningful, and good luck to you. Please don't be strangers. Stop in and see us. This will bring us to our first opportunity for you all to speak tonight.
Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, you had one more name at the bottom of that sheet.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Mrs. Walker. We also want to recognize our Student Leadership Committee member, Peyton Martin. And Peyton is a student at Cavalry Day School who joined the Student Leadership Committee this school year. We want to congratulate her on her completion as a page in the North Carolina House of Representatives. She was sponsored by Julia Howard, and just a wonderful individual. But Peyton, I'm sure, had a wonderful experience in Raleigh. And she's back now, and I'm sure she'll share her wisdom and experience and ideas and what she learned with the Student Leadership Committee. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Walker, for that reminder. Ladies and gentlemen, we're actually going to have 4 opportunities for you to speak tonight. There will be 2 public forums, the one that's coming up right now and then one at the end of the meeting. We will have 3 public hearings, one on our budget, one on our amending our zoning ordinances for lighting standards, and a public hearing on a charter issue. So if you are here to speak on any one of those 3 public issues, our public hearings, please hold your comments until those sections. But if you're here in general just to speak to the council, we'd love to have you. We do have one individual signed up, and that is Lee Covington. Lee, come on up. You're with Senior Services. Good to see you.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here. My name is Lee Covington, and it's my pleasure and privilege to serve as President and CEO of Senior Services of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. You may be aware that Senior Services is dedicated to helping older adults remain in their homes for as long as possible, living and aging with dignity and purpose. And each day at Senior Services, I am able to see our mission in motion through moments of priceless human connection, moments of joy, moments of achievement and triumph, moments of growth and purpose, moments of humanity, and moments that remind me just how needed our work is and how we can all be part of changing lives for the better. Moments such as this. Meals on Wheels. That sequence last year played out more than 3,100 times right here in Louisville for older residents of Louisville who are living with frailty and loneliness. In addition to that core service, through our Aging with Purpose pilot program, Meals on Wheels recipients are engaged in activities such as in-home art lessons with local artists, regular visits with live performances from students at UNCSA, in-home improvisational movement and exercise in partnership with the Wake Forest Dance Department, regular pet visits, and other creative connections that are designed to address loneliness. These are in addition to the nearly 250,000 meals that were delivered last year across Forsyth County. Hundreds of dedicated volunteers joined us recently for a luncheon to celebrate their work and the work of many others who help us to create moments of human connection each and every day. At our award-winning Williams Adult Day Center, every participant who is interested has their own iPod with a customized playlist. Our music and memory program there is breaking new ground in helping people living with dementia and Alzheimer's to find moments of peace and tranquility. Also there at our Williams Center, our award-winning partnership with Kinder Music International is bringing together multiple generations of people from 12 months to over 90 years old each week for enjoyable sessions of music and movement. These are but a few examples of the daily miracles which occur across the Senior Services family, made possible by a great staff, a strong and dedicated board, and a generous and supportive community of donors and volunteers. Over the past 18 months, Senior Services has partnered with other organizations and countless community leaders and residents to develop Age-Friendly Forsyth, a coalition focused on creating a plan to make Forsyth County the place for older adults to live their best life. Age-Friendly Forsyth is hosting a community forum next Thursday, June 21st from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Novant Health Conference Center on Silas Creek Parkway, and we hope everyone in the room this evening will be able to join us for that important event. So I leave you with this thought. Too many local seniors are alone, hungry, and struggling to meet basic needs. Your support, the town of Louisville, has and will continue to change their lives. And as always, I thank you for that continued support as we work together to help Forsyth County age with dignity and purpose. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee, for being here. Appreciate all you do for our community. Council members, any response, any comments? Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move on to the first public hearing this evening, and this will be a public hearing on the Louisville 2018-19 budget. Your council has been working over the last several months to review the items from each department, take a look at our aspirations, take a look at our vision, take a look at our goals, take a look at our projects, and then try to temper that with the revenue dollars that are available to us. Hank, if you'll just kind of give us, I know this is the approval meeting, and we've had at least 3 meetings, public meetings, where we've talked about the budget, but how about giving us just a quick update?
Yes, sir. I've got some highlights for the budget this year.
Thank you.
The proposed budget for the general fund is $4,526,243. This is an increase of 2.41% over the prior year's budget as adopted July 1st, 2017. The budget as proposed includes maintaining the current tax rate of 17.7 cents per $100 evaluation. The budget is balanced with $99,373 in fund balance from the general fund. The town of Louisville also collects a levy for a municipal service district. The proposed tax is unchanged at 4.5 cents per $100 evaluation. This is the Willow Run MSD. According to the Forsyth County tax appraisers, the total tax value for the town of Louisville for the upcoming fiscal year is estimated at $1,361,726,206. This produces an estimated ad valorem tax revenue of $2,337,950. As for town services, the town of Louisville stays committed to the continuation of all of its existing services for the upcoming fiscal year, to include parks and recreation, finance, administration, planning and zoning, public works, residential garbage and recycling, stormwater management, community policing, and beautification. All services are proposed to continue at current service delivery levels for the upcoming fiscal year, with the exception that the town will assume maintenance and care of the perennial garden and other landscaped areas at Jack Warren Park that were previously maintained by volunteers. Moving on to capital reserve funds. The town has 4 capital reserve funds. Currently, annual appropriations to all of these funds is $415,000 per year. At the Town Council Capital Planning Retreat recently held on January 20th, the Council reaffirmed its desire to proactively support the development of the downtown area, the road and sidewalk improvements throughout the town, as well as its desire to develop future capital facilities such as a new community center. During fiscal year 2017-2018, the Town Council learned that the North Carolina Department of Transportation plans to assume financial responsibility for the remaining work to be done on the Great Wagon Road to include design, right-of-way acquisition, and construction. Thus, we are proposing a $10,000 decrease in the annual appropriation to the Great Wagon Road right-of-way construction capital reserve fund. This decrease allows us to fund the annual maintenance work that we've picked up needed for the perennial garden at Jack Warren Park. Thus, this proposed funding in this budget for all capital reserves is proposed at $405,000. As for projects for the upcoming year, the town will continue design work on its Gateway project in the upcoming fiscal year, with right-of-way and construction work planned in future years. The town has also been approved for CMAQ. This is Construction Mitigation and Air Quality Grant Funds. This is a project that will extend the sidewalk along Louisville Clemens Road from Jack Warren Park to Leon's Way. And lastly, I'll mention in addition, the town has also been awarded funding for another CMAQ project to extend the sidewalk along Louisville-Vienna Road from Riverwood Drive all the way out to Robin Hood Road.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions for Hank? Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, we will open the public hearing on our budget. If you are here to speak this evening on our 2018-19 budget, please come forward, state your name, give us your address, and make your comments. Anybody here to speak on the $4.5 million budget, which is your tax dollars, this evening? Okay, if there is no one here to speak, we'll close the public hearing. Council members, what's your pleasure?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Ms. Mock makes the motion, Mr. Franklin makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you, that passes unanimously. Just a couple of quick comments. Our manager mentioned it's a $4.5 million budget. Of that budget, our revenue stream, or property taxes, the taxes that you pay on your homes and your personal property, your automobiles, your boats, your motorcycles, only accounts for about 45% of the revenue that goes into that budget. In the expenditure side, our largest expenditures are $800,000 for solid waste and recycling, $600,000 for community policing, and about $460,000 for street and road maintenances. Now, this is the really interesting thing that I hope those of you watching at home can really put your heads around. Folks talk about the financial ability and competence of municipal governments. Let me share some numbers with you. Right now, in the bank, which is cash in the bank, Louisville has $1.9 million that's assigned to 4 capital project accounts that Hank mentioned just a minute ago. That's money in those accounts that we've been saving to be able to use for these particular projects. We have $1 million assigned to 4 specific projects. That's cash in the bank that we've saved that we're going to be using to advance those projects for the benefit of our residents. This is the number that really you should pay attention to. We have $4.5 million in our unassigned fund balance reserve. That means over the course of the town's life, and certainly in no small part to many of the individuals who are sitting here in this room tonight, the town has been able to create a savings account that gives us the opportunity to do some very, very exciting things for Louisville. If you take the money that we have in savings accounts, in essence, we have $7.4 million that we have been able to save, to put in designated accounts, to put in unassigned accounts that we are going to be using over the next few years for many, many projects to benefit our residents. One of them that your council approved is the new community center. And we'll talk more about that as the time goes on. But I wanted to take just a second and just explain why I think this is so important to our residents. It's not anything that this particular council has done, or the previous council, or the council before that. It's what has occurred over a period of time since this town was, from the town's inception, that we've been able to accomplish this. And I want to congratulate our staff. I want to congratulate and thank our previous council members. I want to thank this council for your diligence as we move through this budget. I think we've got a great project, and I hope our residents are proud of what we've been able to accomplish. We now have our second public hearing, and this is on a zoning ordinance for our lighting standards. Josh, would you like to give us our primer on this, please?
So, good evening. What you've got in front of you, this is something that came out of our 2015 comprehensive plan update. As an immediate need was to update our lighting standards for the town of Louisville. If you look at the top, very top of the page here, you'll see in black and struck through, that is what we currently have for lighting standards for the town of Louisville. So it's very, very limited, pretty much just one sentence that regulates lighting throughout town. Planning board and myself did research for a number of months on different municipalities throughout the state and have came up with what you have in front of you, about a little over a page document that will outline how we see us moving forward on regulating lighting. I think the first paragraph probably will state really the intent of it, which would be the purpose is to regulate the intensity of exterior lighting and seek conformity with International Dark Sky Association recommendations. The intent is to prevent light from commercial and residential developments from excessively illuminating the property in question, other properties, or the night sky. At your briefing meeting, the mayor had mentioned maybe doing some wordsmithing on this, and instead of the property in question, we would prefer to say subject property. Makes a little more sense there. As you move down through, what these standards will be based off of will be foot candles. Oddly enough, I did find a lighting meter in a back drawer in my office that I think had never been opened or used from a number of years ago. I did go out and check some different lightings throughout town. Majority of everything we have is in conformance. There are a handful, if you'll move down, Joyce, skip over to that table. Out of the 5 gas stations we have, 2 of those are not in conformance with what we have written in this new ordinance, which is the maximum of 30 foot candles. And the way we have it written would be, we would give those gas stations 7 years to come into compliance with the new ordinance. And when I say not in compliance, it's not a great deal. The ones that are out of compliance, you're looking at about 38 to 45 foot candles. So it's not 100. It's nothing that's really out of the realm. So I think G is probably worth mentioning at the bottom, where we talked about residential lighting. We didn't want to regulate individual residences with their lighting on their structures. So the way we have it written is those aren't affected by this. If they have light poles that are taller than 8 feet, then we do want to see those conform to this at some point. If they're less than 8 feet, then they're okay. But I think the intent of this is to expand on what we currently have now, which is very little, and to put some stuff in place that will allow folks to see the stars at night.
Very good. Any questions for Josh?
Excuse me, Josh, on the gas station canopies, what are the defined parameters that you used when you took the light meter and went out and sampled the intensity of the foot candles that was being emitted?
The parameters I used for each gas station was just to go underneath the canopy, underneath the lights, and press the button and get my reading.
So one would assume then that if you were back 10 foot, you'd get a different reading.
I would get a less.
And if you were back 50 foot, you'd get a different reading. So there's no parameters have been designed for this ordinance then at this point in time that says how we would test it. That's what I'm getting at.
Correct.
I imagine if you took that light meter and got on a step ladder underneath the canopy and climbed higher, you'd have more intensity there also, right? Okay.
How we would see it moving forward, Councilman Franklin, would be when developments come in, new developments, we would want, and even for gas stations, we would like to see them produce us a photometric plan, which is something that's very common with developments today. With new developments that come in, you'll have a lighting engineer or Duke Energy that can produce a photometric plan that will outline the foot candles and show you whether or not they meet what we require.
But I'm not so sure that this is speaking of going forward with requesting that, even if that was specific in this particular situation. But what I do see in this is that if you walk underneath the canopy and you flip on your light meter, and you determine that they're at 38, I believe was the highest number I heard, then at that point in time, they're put on a 7-year notice. Is that correct?
Right. Right.
Okay.
It would be 7 years from the date of adoption of this article, if y'all so choose to go forward with it.
So you're going to be doing inspections or not? And sending out notices if they're in violation after this ordinance is passed?
For South County, we'll do that. Since they do all our enforcement for zoning, they will be the ones that do that.
Okay. Just trying to understand. I deal with regulations daily.
I understand completely.
Any other questions? Josh, were you going to make any determination on the ball fields?
The way the ball fields would be interpreted, Mayor Horn, would be, unless they're putting up new lights, then they're not going to be affected by this.
Okay, very good. Anything else for Josh? Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll open the public hearing on our new modification of our lighting ordinances. Anybody here wish to speak on this lighting ordinance? Anyone wish to speak? Please state your name and your street address.
Tom Lawson, 356 Louisville Trails Road in Louisville. I'll just be brief. I want to take a minute to make you aware, if you're not, of the work that Josh has been doing. This lighting ordinance was first proposed under Mayor Stebbins back in the late 90s. It's been mired since Josh has come. He's literally taken situations like this and created workable documents that we're actually able to get some product through in an expeditious manner. And he's walking and chewing gum at the same time. We're doing this in addition to other things because he's doing the work up front, and I thought that somebody should mention that. Number two, I think Fred raises a good point about the enforcement on this. Coming up with a consistent way of measuring that would be important, but something I'd like to encourage you to consider as well. Some places are using lighting as de facto advertising. You may remember some years back we had an establishment that opened in the shopping center across the street here in the Williams Center and put up a couple of extremely bright spots right in the middle of the parking lot, and there was nothing that could be done about that. So that's another aspect of this that should be considered in addition to the dark sky portion. So that was all I had to say. Thank you.
Very good, Tom. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wish to speak? Very good. We'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Council, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Zinger makes the motion. Mr. Smith makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
That will be 6 in the affirmative with Mr. Franklin voting in opposition. Very good. Our next public hearing this evening is a repeal of Section 3.5 governing the limitations on terms of office. Bo, do you want to go ahead and give us a little intro on this one, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The ordinance that you have before you, and again, this is mostly for the benefit of the public kids here. We've discussed this at some length over the past several months. The ordinance before you would repeal the provision in our town charter that imposes 8-year or 4 2-year term limits on both the mayor and all council members. This provision has been honored since the town's incorporation in 1991, and members of the council and the mayor who have served 4 consecutive 2-year terms have abided by this charter provision without exception, and no one has ever challenged it. In 1992, a year after incorporation, the North Carolina Supreme Court issued an opinion in a case involving a North Carolina statute that required a holder of one elective office to resign that office before running for another elective office. In that case, entitled Moore versus Knightdale Board of Elections, again in 1992, the court determined that such a requirement violated the North Carolina Constitution, which contains only 2 requirements to run for office: being at least 21 years of age and being eligible to vote for the office being sought. The Supreme Court in that case held that no other requirements could be imposed upon candidates for municipal or county offices. The matter is discussed in an article by the North Carolina School of Government, and I found that article that was originally written in 2010. I found it sometime after 2010. Can't tell you the exact day I found that, but when I found it, I spoke with the prior town manager here, and we determined that at that time, since this provision of the charter had never been challenged or questioned in any way, and it seemed to be, for the most part, a popular charter provision, it was determined that we would wait and not initiate comment on it until such time as either it was challenged, someone asked a specific question of me about it, or if a citizen were to ask about it. And so it remained, I remained aware of it, but I did not raise it in any meetings until January of this year, when we had a planning meeting with the council, and at that time various issues relating to the charter were discussed, and among them term limits, at which time I dropped what I think was a bomb upon all of the council members who had not been previously aware of it, to my knowledge, and advised them that that term limits for municipal council members and mayors are not allowed under the North Carolina Constitution. And then I was asked after that to look at what the procedure is for the possible amendment of a charter provision such as this. And I found that procedure in General Statutes Section 160A-102, and it allows for amendment by ordinance of charter provisions that relate to the form of government, as this one does. And so the process is first, and which happened last month, a resolution of intent must first be passed by the council, setting a public hearing, which is where we are this evening. Following this public hearing, there will be a vote, but not until at least one meeting hence. We can't vote. The council is not entitled to vote on that tonight. We can vote on it at the next meeting or in a meeting within 60 days. And then following that vote, assuming that it is adopted, then there will be a publication of the ordinance amending the charter. I'd be happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Council members, any questions for both? Very good. Ladies and gentlemen, we're open the public hearing on a proposed amendment, consideration of a proposed amendment to the town charter. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on this? If so, please come up, give us your name, your address, and we'll loosely hold you to the 3-minute limit.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name's Ken Sadler. I'm at 8519 Brook Meadow Lane. First time since the town was incorporated that I've been on this side of the council to speak to the council. I appreciate all that you do on behalf of the town. I appreciate the presentation that was just given by the town attorney. My primary concern is around the notion of changing the charter that is in reaction to a case that was adjudicated 26 years ago. And while the town has chosen not to act on it for 26 years, and because you all did discuss it during your retreat and ask questions of the attorney, which he responded to, you've made movement in the direction of changing the charter. I did not hear the attorney say that there is any requirement in law that the charter be changed, only that you cannot enforce term limits. And to that end, I'm wondering why it would be necessary to change the charter. I've said to others that, in my view, the charter is, in that regard, is aspirational. And by that, what I mean is that there have been 9 members of this council since its inception who have served 4 terms and then left. I've done that twice. The mayor has done that twice. We've got 3 previous mayors in the audience who've all done that. Council member in the audience who has done that. And upon the inception of the town, during the discussion as to whether we should have town term limits or not, those who helped develop the charter were of the strong opinion that we should have term limits and that folks should not serve in these positions and therefore be entitled by incumbency. Because we recognize often in other institutions of government that people tend to serve for many years without others having the opportunity to participate. Now, I know that at some point there's been a concern that we would have 4 members leave all at once, and that would cripple the council and the town. Well, there wouldn't be 4 members leaving at once now, except they've served 4 terms, which means they replaced somebody 4 terms ago. And in my estimation, this council has done yo ladies work in managing the affairs of the town. And so I'm not fearful. There's been one other time other than this time when there's been a significant turnover of the council. And we're still standing. We've continued to make progress. And so I'm not fearful of the town having 4 council people leave. But as the attorney mentioned, if someone were to decide that they were going to challenge the charter and not honor the traditions of the town, then they could do that. My guess is that the town would not litigate that. My guess is the town would say, these folks have decided not to honor the traditions that have been in place since the incorporation of the town. And so I guess just because the council can do a thing, can do something, because it's permitted to do something, doesn't mean you should do something. And I would encourage you not to do this just because you can do it. And unless there's an absolute requirement in law that you make the change, then I see no reason for you to make the change. And as a parting thought to you, I would simply say to you, don't destroy the traditions of the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sadler. Anyone else wish to speak?
Good evening. I'm Jane Welch, address 250 Arrowleaf Drive. I also would like to speak on this issue as I've had the privilege of serving in the original council in 4 other terms, sitting out for one of the 2-year periods. And when we were discussing this to be part of our town charter, there were many reasons that we're giving and that I think we should keep in mind and see the value of them. When you have the term limits, you have more people that are allowed to serve. It gives individuals a chance. Perhaps they have already served our town on Parks and Rec or Planning Committee. That has often happened, who later run for our town council. It does give more to bring in for new ideas for our town and just more to serve. As Ken had stated, you have seen in other parts of government, people can become very comfortable in being elected time and time again. And having term limits helps to mitigate that type of feeling and sensation. Because as you know, name recognition is always an advantage for re-election. Even the military has known what an advantage it is to have term limits. Perhaps you are a base squadron commander and with the ranking of lieutenant colonel. Even with that position, after 2 years, you are no longer allowed to serve in that position. The military has recognized how important it is to have turnover, fresh ideas, others to serve, have a chance to move on in their careers. My last statement is, why do we not put this question to our community, to our people? they should have a chance to say how they feel. Can we not put it in our quarterly newsletter, this question? Do you agree with town limits, or do you think someone should run indefinitely? Thank you for your time, and thank you to those who are now serving.
Thank you, Jean. Always good to see you. Anyone else?
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. Gordon Bingham, 173 Tulleries Lane, 37 years here in Louisville. I was involved, as many of you know, in the founding discussions for the incorporation, specifically on the committees that had to do with the form of government. Council form, details of how the council would be put together and so forth. And one of those issues was term limits. We talked to residents. It's a very lengthy process, as you can imagine. We formed committees, we talked to residents, we had forums, open forums, we did surveys, and one of the things that came up fairly often was the notion that the residents wanted a kind of government that would provide opportunities for many citizens to get involved and would avoid the possibility of any kind of entrenchment, if you want to call it that. Hence, the founding documents and the charter included the provision for term limits. It was for those reasons that the term limits were instituted. Since that time, as has been said, a number of people have come up against those term limits, and whether or not they knew about this issue that we're talking about tonight or not, I don't know. But they all stepped aside. They all adhered to those term limits and stepped aside. Some to, in turn, run again a year or two later, as Jane said. Others to step aside entirely, feeling that they'd done their service. But in any case, they followed what they assumed to be the requirements. And that became, as Ken said, a tradition as well. And I would simply hope that whatever action you take tonight, and I would align myself with Ken's remarks, but whatever action you take tonight, that current and future council members would adhere to those traditions, to continue to adhere to the term limit traditions, even though it may not be in the charter anymore. You can certainly do that. There's no reason why a council member could not do that. You're not violating anything, as I would understand it, because that's what was intended at the time of the founding. And I would hope that you, not you all personally, but you, council and future council members, would remember that. Secondly, and briefly, before I knew all about this term limit issue, my wife and I wrote you all an email on the 31st of May, I hope you all got that, in which we argued in favor of staggered terms for council members. And I would simply ask that you consider that as you also consider this term limit issue, because I think, especially with this term limit issue, the notion of having staggered terms simply would enhance, as we said in our letter, the benefits of continuity, legislative experience, and historical perspective, which I think was our point in the first place. My wife and I have felt strongly about this issue for some time, and just coincidentally finally got to writing you all about it at a time when this term limit issue came up in the first place. So, in sum, I hope that the term limit tradition, regardless of what action you take with regard to the charter, the tradition will be adhered to. And secondly, that you will consider at the appropriate time adding to the charter the notion of staggered terms. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gordon. Anyone else wish to speak?
I'm Dan Pugh, 225 Brooks Landing Drive in Winston-Salem. I certainly echo the previous sentiments of the speakers. I think that one thing that term limits has done for this town is set Louisville aside from others. I know we've been the envy of many of the other communities, even here in Forsyth County, of having term limits. Whether it be mandated or whether it's voluntary, I think it's served the best interest of this town. And I would urge you to consider that and urge you to not amend the charter to do away with term limits. I know it's from the legal aspect, it probably is not enforceable until challenged, and probably not enforceable at that point. But I think public sentiment, public opinion will enforce it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Bob Stebbins, 106 Hillary Court, Louisville, North Carolina, 27023. And as one of the people in this town used to say, a tax-paying resident. My concern is the fact that if you look around at other towns who have no term limits, people have been in those jobs for 30, 40 years. Nothing changes. You have no new ideas. You don't have things happen. This town has a reputation of being a town that plans ahead, gets things done, has a great place for people to live. We're getting larger and larger, and as we do, there's going to be less and less interest in who runs on the council and so on. So without term limits, you may not get people to even run. So that's my big concern. I just don't think that we should be messing with the charter because you open it up for a lot of other things, including the state, who has really the say over whether we're a town or not. So I would urge you not to proceed with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else wish to speak?
Mr. Mayor and Town Council members, I'm a little intimidated with Jerry Farmer, 1350 Lasley Road, South Louisville. Forgotten, it's on the south side of 421. Okay. I was saying I was a little intimidated to be up here speaking with all these famous Louisvillians. You know, I can remember when this town was, before the town was incorporated, and the steering committee had divided into various committees to study the various aspects of what this thing would look like. I was in the part that had to do with zoning and so forth, and it was exhausting. But I remembered thinking, I am so fortunate that I didn't get stuck on the government, what we call the government committee. Those people worked. I mean, it was really difficult what they did. Spent many hours, really studied this thing hard for a good reason. Since incorporation, we have pretty much been well served by our town councils. I believe one of the reasons is, in fact, the term limits previously honored by town council candidates. Personally, I suspect that all levels of government in a democracy would be better served if they had term limits. Unless you are legally compelled to change the charter, why not leave it in place as a reminder of what the plebiscite favored. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. I'll look up that word when I get home.
I have to.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Tom Lawson, 356 Louisville Trails Road in Louisville, also a South Sider, so I'm glad that we're fully represented tonight. I had some comments prepared, but honestly, I couldn't say it any better than Ken did or any of the others. One of the things I have to say is, at this period in time, what I love about this town is, when I sat up there even, we still have the founding fathers here. You know, when I was up there, I used to count on the advice of so many of these gentlemen and ladies for different things, because how often do you have the opportunity to have the people in the room that actually were there when the whole thing began? I mean, that's not going to be something that will go on indefinitely, so we really live in a fortunate situation. To Gordon's point about staggered terms, it's an interesting point. We had actually brought that up in 2006 at the retreat and did a little bit of fishing on that. The public generally seemed to favor that. At the time, though, it was tabled because I think Ken might have mentioned, you know, until we get to a situation where we're going to explore the charter, you know, why fix something if it's not broke? So Gordon's point that at this point might be a good time to look further into that would be good. Lastly, I will say this. When we talk about the traditions of the town, I think that that's a solid point, and I think we illustrated tonight. There have been many court cases that have been found that prayer before a meeting is not allowed. This came up early on in my term, sitting on that side of the dais. Our decision at that time was we were not going to change the traditions and how we handled it. That certainly if somebody wanted to come forward and challenge that at that time we recognized that there had been certain decisions, and at that point we would address it in a fashion that would be legal and legitimate. But for the time being, we determined that we would stick with the traditions of the town and continue with prayer before the meeting as we always had. So I would encourage you to continue thinking in that vein and understanding what everyone before me has said, and take that as part of your considerations. I appreciate the time tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else here wish to speak?
The other mayor doesn't live here anymore. He couldn't be here.
Let the record show that Mr. Stebbins made an appropriate comment about a former mayor. We'll let the citizenry wonder what that was. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak?
Pavilion named after him.
Anyone else wish to speak? With that, we'll close our public hearing. First, let me say I am honored to have you all here tonight. Not only have I served on the council with all of you, I consider you noble colleagues and also great friends. Your demonstrated interest in the town and our future is represented by the service that you've contributed. Your comments are well received and very much appreciated, and know that we'll take them seriously to heart. I wish you guys would come back more often. It's always good to see you. Council members, what I'd like to do is, I understand that there will be 2 absences at our July meeting, and we were due to have our council consideration of this in July. With council's approval, I'd like to go ahead and move this to our August meeting when I do believe we'll have all council members present.
Can I make a comment first? You know, and I've said this before, I said it at another meeting, I don't know, last fall sometime. You know, one of the things that Louisville has always done is just done things its own way. And I know that maybe more than some, being on the planning board and then chairman of the planning board, and also being in the building industry. I was nominated to go out several times and have rocks thrown at me. And I caught a lot of grief from within my industry, from different areas. I ran right after the annexation. I took and did a planning board meeting over at the Pofftown, or over in the Vienna Fire Department. It was a long night. And so, you know, but here's the thing. We stood strong during all of that. And there were some people that were really passionate about it. But we did we felt was the right thing to do. And I can tell you, it's interesting to see now the attitudes of some of those very same people. You know, now in the development industry and in the building industry, they're, man, Louisville, you guys doing it right. You know, well, they weren't saying that 15 years ago. They were telling us we were knuckleheads and had no idea what we were doing. And so, you know, from my standpoint, you know, I'm fine. I'm fine with us continuing to do things our own way, because just as Mayor Pugh said, you know, we are the envy. When people find out that I'm from Louisville, their ears perk up, and then when they find out I'm on the council, they've always got a really great thing to say. So I'm just going to lay it out there and just say that I'm totally fine with us doing our own thing. And so I just
let's. I think probably we crossed over a little bit of the line in discussing this issue before our consideration, Bo. Is that?
I think you can have council discussion, and you'll be okay to have that if you're so inclined to have discussion. You just cannot make your vote on it until at least the next meeting.
Okay. Just want to be sure we don't get ourselves in trouble here in the process.
I'm good at that.
Any other comments? It's the council again.
Wait a minute. Okay. I'm probably coming down on the opposite side of most of the council. I too have termed out one time. I too have served with every one of the previous speakers tonight that have been elected to council. I believe in the traditions that we've had since the beginning of our town. It has served us well. I know Bob and I termed out at the same time during our first 4 consecutive terms. I think he would agree with me. It was beneficial to both of us had we ran the next time, which I don't think either one of us did, that it would have been great to step away for a period of 2 years, sort of get away from it, look at it from the outside. Then if you decide that it's right for you to continue to participate, you throw your hat in the ring again. I probably have ran more races than Dan did, and he termed out twice. I didn't always win. Sometimes your horse don't run fast enough. That's part of the process, and there's nothing wrong with that. I ran a write-in vote one time. I thought I did very well, almost 600 votes, but you know, I'd have done a whole lot better if my name had been on the ballot. So coming and going is not a big issue. I think what upsets me about why we're talking about it now is because it was sprung on us in January of this year. And after it was sprung on us, and several of us was taken by shock, it started coming out that, Bo, you knew about it since 2010.
Shortly after that, that's right.
Yeah. And I know that I've served on at least one past council, maybe 2, since 2010. I came back on new this time, I believe. Anyhow, my point is you had discussed it with a previous manager and just like let the sleeping dog lie. What really made it come out this time that you decided to poke the dog and let us all know about it?
Thank you for asking me that question. The issue itself was mentioned in a public meeting, at which time I felt that I could not mention it at that time. This was a very difficult thing for me, and again, I do thank you for asking me that question, because I was aware of it probably not right at 2010, but sometime maybe a year or 2 after that. And I did speak with the previous town manager, and we thought, we knew that this very discussion was going to take place whenever this might happen, because if I can state frankly, both as a citizen and as an attorney, if we could keep term limits here, I would be in favor of that. But when I found out and when it was raised in public at a meeting, I felt as though I had to make it known at that time.
So that happened prior to our January meeting, is what you're saying? It was raised in public prior?
Now, I think it was raised at the January meeting.
I think I perceive that some people already knew about it because not everyone in the room was shocked about it when it was announced. Okay, let me ask you this. So you discussed it with the previous manager. Have you had that discussion with our current manager?
I did, but very briefly, because I did. Yes, I did.
Well, I guess that's what leads me to the disappointment that I have, that this council is taking up this matter when we could have left it laying the way it was. And then if someone so desired, if they approached you on a more personal basis and desired to challenge it, you could have advised them, yes, you're allowed to do that. Not only as a town attorney, but as a private citizen and also an attorney.
What I would have done, had a citizen raised that issue with me, I would have said at that time, I would have answered that question. I would have said, yes, you can't, the term limit provision is not enforceable, but when that was raised with me, then I would have come to council and said, this question has been raised to me, and I feel as though, since I've advised one person in the town, whether it's somebody on council or whether it was a private citizen, then it's appropriate for the council as a whole to know.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, and I want to be clear, especially since we have the public here, is that when we had the vote to establish the public hearing, I was against it at that time. I will continue to maintain that stance, even though I'm somewhat conflicted because I stood up here in December, placed my hand on the Bible, and swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States and North Carolina. Now I'm being advised through these discussions that our provision, our charter, is unconstitutional. I don't believe that. I believe it may be unconstitutionally enforceable, which still means that the provision can stay in place, and our charter has been mentioned by Ken and others tonight. And I know it's probably going to fall on deaf ears, but I would encourage the other council members to reconsider this issue as we go forward.
Mr. Franklin, I wouldn't make any presumptions about other council members' opinions on this, please.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm just encouraging them to reconsider. We've already had one vote to have the public hearing, so I think we got a good feel.
Any other council members wish to make comments? Anyone else? Very good. So once again, council, I come back to you and ask for this item to be moved to our August meeting, when we'll have a full contingent of council members, I understand. Any objections? Do we need a motion on that, Bo?
Just for clarity, it'd probably be best.
I'd like to make that motion.
Second.
Mr. Green makes a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much. That'll be moved to our August meeting for council consideration.
That's August 9.
August 9, thank you. Very good. Moving on. We have no evidentiary hearings tonight. We have no appointments tonight. We have no unfinished business tonight. Hank, I believe we're moving the new business section. Joyce, you have the first couple of items on our new business.
Oh, excuse me. Yes. Council probably knows that George Stilfen has been on our recycling committee for at least 25 or 26 years, but George has submitted his resignation to that committee, citing a number of items in his personal life. So I bring to you Resolution 2018040, accepting George's resignation.
Any questions for Joyce? Entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Smith makes the motion, Ms. Mock makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, that's unanimous. Ms. Walker.
Okay, with that, the recycling committee had been meeting quarterly, and with that change, they're going to ask to be meeting every other month instead. So we've had to change the calendar, and I bring that to council for your approval.
Any questions for Joyce? Entertain a motion.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
What's the, do they really feel like they need to meet that? I mean, I'm just curious. They can meet as much as they want.
Apparently, with George not being there, and he's had a lot of things going on in the past, so the folks who are left on the committee feel that they would like to move forward and do some other things that are beneficial to the town.
Okay.
So their feeling was that they could meet more frequently, they could bring some other things forward.
Great.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. That is unanimous.
Who made the motion?
I made
the motion?
Not have a motion on the
Yeah.
floor? Okay, Mr. Smith makes the motion on the floor. Ms. Mock makes the second.
Anderson.
Very good. Now, any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That is also unanimous. Josh, you have a contract for us for our stormwater pond.
So
Yes, sir.
I think we'd like to request we recuse Councilwoman Mock.
I'll second that.
Very good. Mrs. Mock may have a conflict of interest on this particular item, so there's been a motion made by Mr. Smith to excuse her. Mr. Franklin makes that second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Mrs. Mock. You are excused. Josh?
So Resolution 2018-041 would be to approve the contract for Stantec Consulting Services for pond number 1, which was, I guess, born out of our Louisville Regional Stormwater Plan in 2015. There will be, there's pond 1 and pond 2. Pond 1 would be on the south side of Shallowford Road. What they would be doing for this amount, $33,600, would be property line establishment and topographic survey, easement mapping and staking, and a conceptual design of the stormwater pond 1.
Any questions for Josh?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Franklin makes the motion. Mrs. Goldman makes a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is 6 in the affirmative with Mrs. Mock excused from the vote, who is now rejoining the council discussion. Alrighty. Josh, you have some information for us on a historic district overlay.
Actually, I think
Back up.
the Gateway project is before
You're
that.
exactly right. I'm clicking off too quickly. Gateway project, one we've been working on for a long time.
Yeah, so Resolution 2018-042 is a contract for $275,098 for Kimley Horn for design for the Williams Road Gateway project. If you'll bear with me, I want to just read a little bit for the folks at home and the folks in the audience that may not know what this is. So this project consists of widening and a complete streets design of roughly 0.35 miles of State Road 1173, which is Williams Road, from the roundabout at Concord Church Road, south of the bridge of US 421, to the roundabout of State Road 1001, which is Shallowford Road. The project includes widening to a 3-lane curb and gutter facility with a planted median or center turn lane, 5 to 7 foot sidewalks on both sides to provide pedestrian connectivity. The project could also include streetscape elements such as planting strips, crosswalk treatments, landscaping, public art, and street lighting. And the town is responsible for 20% of this figure, which would be $55,019.
Very good. Questions for Josh?
So this is one of those 80/20s, right?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Smith makes the motion. Mr. Zinger makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That is unanimous. Josh, now we're to the historic district overlay.
So these next two will kind of go together. Resolution 2018-043, which is for UDO L155, Historic Overlay Districts, specifically Section 4-7. This pertains to procedures that we currently have in our UDO. If you'll recall, some time ago, Town of Louisville had agreed to be part of a joint Historic Resources Commission with Forsyth County, Clemens, and some other municipalities in Forsyth County. This is just cleaning up what we currently have to allow us to be part of that joint commission.
Very good. Any questions for Josh? Entertain a motion?
Motion.
Second, wherever we're at.
I think Ms. Goldman has risen above the crowd on this one. Ms. Goldman makes a motion, Mr. Franklin makes a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That is unanimous. Joyce, you got some tax business for us, please.
I've got one more.
One more.
I have one more?
One more, the other half. So Resolution 2018-044.
I'm not doing well tonight with
It's okay.
with these motions, am I? Okay, go ahead.
Resolution 2018-044, which is UDO L156, Historic Overlay District Sections 4-1, 4-2, and 4-3, which is really the creation of the Historic Resources Commission. As I mentioned, we had agreed to be part of this joint commission, and this just enables that to happen.
Very good. Questions for Josh? We'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Mrs. Goldman makes a motion, Ms. Mock makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That is also unanimous. I think I'm alluding to the fact that Mayor Pugh said that there was some good sports on TV tonight that I'm trying to rush through this agenda. So you'll excuse my oversights on occasion.
We thought you were looking at this senior services thing here, Mike. Sorry.
And having one of those moments.
We found your picture in here. So.
Thank you very much. I'll be first in line. Thank you. Now, Joyce, we're down to taxes.
Ordinance 2018037 is the order for the Forsyth County Tax Collector to collect 2018 taxes from the town of Louisville.
Any questions for Joyce?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Franklin makes a motion. Ms. Goldman makes a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That's unanimous. Ms. Walker.
The next one is ordinance 2018038, and that is the order to collect 2017 and prior year's taxes by the Forsyth County Tax Collector.
Any questions for Joyce? Entertain a motion.
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Fifth makes the motion. Ms. Mock makes the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That is unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen at home, it appears that we tend to move through these items of new business relatively quickly. This is not the first time that we've seen them. We have a briefing session the first Thursday of every month, at which time we are briefed extensively on each one of these items, and the council has the following week to do our own research, to ask our own questions, and to explore those issues so that we are satisfied and are prepared to vote on them this evening. So rest assured, there's not information that's been put in front of us tonight. We've had ample time to consider it prior to this. Hank, you have some administrative reports.
Yes, sir. I've got a couple of things for Shallowford Square and town closings. On Saturday, June 23rd, I believe it will be our 4th annual Street Party and Food Truck Festival. It will be held at Shallowford Square and the, David McKee and part of Great Wagon Road. Then moving on to July 4th, town offices will be closed in observance of Independence Day. And that's all I've got.
Very good.
Are we going to have fireworks or something?
Yes, sir. Fireworks will be there.
1,000 a year closest.
Yeah.
Hank, just one quick question.
Intimate gathering.
Did we get any clarification on the DOT's project on Shallowford Road, the paving project?
We got a lot of things that didn't really make sense. We were trying to follow up with that.
Okay. Well, what we're referring to, ladies and gentlemen, is that many of the roads in town do belong to the town, and we're responsible for their maintenance and repair. However, there are a number of roads, like Shallowford Road, that are Department of Transportation roads, and they are owned and maintained by the state. I was sitting in my office yesterday, and all of a sudden I look up, and there is a major machine rolling down Shallowford Road, tearing up concrete and what appears to be getting ready for a paving. Let me say that we unfortunately did not get any advance notice of this. However, we are trying to figure out what's going on and how long it will take, and we will be posting that information on our Facebook page and also on our website just as soon as we can sort it out. But it is a legitimate project. We're going to have a better road when it's all over with, but it is a North Carolina Department of Transportation project.
I think it's been 19 years or 18 years since that surface went down. So it's been a good run.
Probably right.
I got caught up in it today.
Very good. Ms. Walker, you want to talk to us about Census Day?
I just wanted to remind the audience and those at home that the official Census Day is April 1st, 2020. And I know this sounds like we're talking to you kind of early, but we want to get everybody to know what the census is all about and all the things and how important it really is to return any questionnaires that you receive. Based on population totals and other breakdowns and factors, these population statistics provide the basis for reapportioning congressional seats and redistricting, and it also distributes billions of dollars in federal funding to support state, county, and community programs. And we will be providing information on an ongoing basis between now and April 2020 so that people will feel comfortable when they get that piece of paper in the mail, or if a census taker should happen to come knocking on your door if you don't return it. Other things that I'm exploring, I've gotten their operational procedures, so I'll be looking at other things and trying to get that information out to the residents in Louisville.
Very good, thank you. And it does sound like we're starting on this a little early. However, it's important for Louisville to be counted. Our PAL bill funding is based upon our population, as well as our sales tax allocation is based on population. So every undercount are dollars that we don't get to advance the vision of the town. So we'll be calling for dollars.
Oh, and one other item, they are, believe it or not, already accepting applications for a variety of field jobs. So if anyone is interested in anything, if they will give me a call, I will email that link to everyone.
You're looking for a job, contact Mrs. Walker. But you have to be able to count.
Joyce?
Yes.
Quick question. I just can't pass this up. You're not fooling me on that start date, are you?
I was thinking the same thing. Do you think we could move it a day?
You set it up. I had to take it.
Oh, April 1st?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're not fooling me on the date, are you?
That is the date.
Very good. We're down to the second opportunity for general comments to your town council. Anybody wish to come forward, address the council, please state your name and address.
Ken Sadler, 8519 Brook Meadow Lane. Mr. Mayor and Council, none of us who were here tonight came to criticize or chastise you for what you do. We've sat where you sit, and we all understand how difficult some of the decisions are that you are faced with. I just would like to say that I would encourage you to give it as much or more thought than you already have, and when you come to deliberate on this again in August, that you would consider the traditions of the town when you make your final decision as to whether or not the charter should be changed. And if there is no absolute legal necessity to do so, then as many have said, I would encourage you to leave it as it is. And I have an official statement I'll leave with the town clerk. And again, thank you for all you do in the interest of the citizens of Louisville.
Thank you, Ken. Anyone else wish to speak? Council members, back to you. Anyone closing comments this evening?
It's just great to have people stay to the end.
Well, I know one of them I'm giving a ride home, so there's I'm afraid. Very good. Maybe not, you're right. Very good. With that, council members, will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Next motion to adjourn.
Second.
Ms. Mock makes the motion, Mr. Zinger makes the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. We are adjourned.